Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome into the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching on X, _ Jonathan Smith. If you want to follow me there and watch the show there, you can also listen on that Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you find your apps. And of course, 14:30 a.m. in the car. We are in full-blown football season, kind of, I guess. Is it football season? Like, does training camp mark the start of football season? Is it the preseason? Is it the regular season? I don't know. I say we're in full-blown football season as I'm standing here and all of my Cubs attire. I'll talk about that right now. Why not? Ryne Sandberg passed away yesterday, one of the 10 greatest second basemen of all time. If you wanted to tell me that, he's number one, like, okay, that's fine. I'm not going to argue about it. All I know is he is undoubtedly one of the 10 best second basemen to ever play the game of baseball. He passed away yesterday. Really sad, so I figured I'd throw on my Sandberg jersey in honor of his death. Anyway, the Indianapolis Colts, they're in full swing. The offense had a good day yesterday at training camp, finally. I know we're all super excited about that. I don't think the Colts posted any highlights from it, which is kind of surprising. And it's great. It's fun. Good news. Colts camp. The offense looked good. And after practice, Colts head coach Shane Steichen was asked about the performances of his two quarterbacks, both Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson. They both played well. I feel kind of bad for Daniel Jones because no one really cares about him, at least within the media. Every question that Shane Steichen has asked, none of them are about Daniel Jones. They're all about Anthony Richardson, because I do think that the hope is for Anthony Richardson to figure it out and to be the Colts starting quarterback and to be really good, because as we all know, the ceiling with Anthony Richardson is so much higher than the ceiling with Daniel Jones. Here is Shane Steichen yesterday talking about the play of both quarterbacks and also answering some questions from Stephen Holder about Anthony Richardson.
Yeah, both of them were solid. They're throwing the ball with accuracy, with rhythm, timing, hit some big plays down the field. So very pleased with both those guys.
I noticed Anthony layering some of those throws.
Yeah.
Over maybe zones. I don't know, but is that a good step forward for you?
Yeah, absolutely. You got to throw these tight window throws in this league, and that accuracy, how to layer the ball, and how to know when to throw it, how to throw it is big. Obviously, versus zone coverage or man coverage, whether you're throwing a 7-cut versus zone, you got to be able to lay it. If it's man, you got to throw it firm. So they did a good job with that today.
And getting it out on time is huge in those, right? Has he done a better job of that?
Yes, he has. He definitely has. Obviously going into year 3, the timing, knowing the offense better. So pleased with that.
Colts head coach Shane Steichen right there talking about Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson, saying how good they both looked yesterday. And Anthony Richardson is figuring out how to throw the football a little bit, throwing the ball, layering it. Right, being on time, being on target, all those very, very important things. So far out of camp, we haven't heard anything about his shoulder, which is a good thing. That's a good sign. Seems like things are going well for him. And it's nice to hear that Anthony Richardson's playing well, and it's nice to hear that Daniel Jones is playing well. We are going to talk about Bernard Raimann because he got paid as of yesterday. But it's nice to hear that both quarterbacks played well yesterday. And it's nice to hear that the offense had a good day. It's nice to hear, from Kent Sterling yesterday on the Dan Dockett show that, Charvarious Ward is making things really tough on Michael Pittman Jr. It's good to hear all that. But when it comes to the quarterback battle, though, I don't really care about anything that happened yesterday. I don't really care about anything that's going to happen today. It doesn't matter. We heard Rick Venturi, Coach Venturi, one of the smartest people you'll hear talk about football. We heard him say, it's really hard to evaluate quarterbacks in a practice setting, in this training camp setting. For me, the days that will determine whether or not Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones is going to be the starting quarterback are August 5th, August 7th, August 14th, August 16th, and August 23rd. Those 5 days will be the days that determine who the starting quarterback is. So, Jonathan, what's so significant about those 5 days? Those are the 5 days that the Colts either have a joint practice with the Baltimore Ravens, a preseason game against the Baltimore Ravens, a joint practice with the Packers, a preseason game against the Packers, and then they close August 23rd, their preseason schedule with the game against the Cincinnati Bengals. Those are the days that are going to determine who the Colts starting quarterback is. When you're playing against, a different defense and you're having to read and decipher, and you don't kind of have an idea of what the defense is going to run because you haven't practiced against them every day for multiple weeks now. The highlights that the Colts account posts are nice. Hearing that, Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson were both efficient yesterday is great, but it's not going to hold as much weight as going out against the Packers or the Ravens in the preseason or in these joint practices. Especially when you consider how much Anthony Richardson struggled against the Packers last year. Like, that's the thing for me. Like, you can sit here and tell me that Anthony Richardson has gotten better, and you can point to how he's layering balls and how he's doing all of these different things. I want to see that joint practice against the Green Bay Packers. Because last year, Anthony Richardson was awful against the Green Bay Packers. You remember it? Week 2 on the road in Lambeau. I'm talking about the weather. I'm like, hey, it's good that they're playing the Packers early. That means, it's not going to snow. Oh, Jordan Love's not going to play. They're playing Malik Willis. Colts should definitely win this game. And then what happened? The Packers showed up, and they ran the ball for 1,000,000 yards, and Anthony Richardson really struggled. He was 17 of 34, 204 passing yards, 1 touchdown, and 3 interceptions. That will not cut it. And I don't think we really know how much better he's gotten until he's facing live bullets against the defense that he struggled mightily against last year. And that is really the question with this quarterback battle. How much better has Anthony Richardson gotten? How much work did he get to put in over the course of the offseason? And how much of that is going to translate to real game-like situations? Because Daniel Jones is going to be Daniel Jones. Nothing is going to change. He's going to hit the checkdowns. He's going to throw interceptions. He's not going to throw very many touchdowns. Both players can run. Obviously, Anthony Richardson is the better runner. But Daniel Jones is serviceable in that area as well. Okay? And that's what Daniel Jones is across the board. He's serviceable. It's like, yeah, he can make all of the basic NFL quarterback throws. He can run it when he needs to. And that doesn't win enough football games for you to make the playoffs. You say, well, Jonathan, how do you know that? I know that because I watched him play in New York for 6 years and make the playoffs once. That's it. Daniel Jones's serviceable level of quarterback play isn't going to get you into the playoffs. So if you want the Colts to win over 7.5 games, then you better be pulling for Anthony Richardson. And I have some good news, or I would call it good news, and I'm going to compliment Chris Ballard. Bernard Raimann, Colts starting left tackle, was extended yesterday at 4 years, $100 million. It's awesome. And Chris Ballard has a lot of issues. There are a lot of things he has not done well. Struggled on hitting his first-round picks. The second-round picks haven't been much better. There's a lot of a lot of average along this Indianapolis Colts roster. Like, if you were to go through the Colts roster, there's just a lot of, he's fine. There's very few blue chip guys that if you reached out to a team and said, hey, would you want this guy on your team? And would they play immediately? There's not very many of them. And that has been part of the knock on Chris Ballard, right? There's just not enough great players on this roster. There's a lot of solid, there's a lot of average, but there's very few great. And to Chris Ballard's credit, he found a left tackle in Bernard Raimann, who is going to be the Colts starting left tackle for probably a decade, and he didn't need a first-round pick to do it. That is one of the very few things that Chris Ballard has done a good job of. right? The first year of Bernard Raimann was pretty rough. The second year was a little bit better. And then last year, pretty good. No other way to put it. He was. And so congrats to him on getting paid. Congrats to Chris Ballard on finally hitting on an offensive lineman that we all love. I know people are falling in love with Tanner Bortolini. I don't really get it. Like, he was good early last year, but the more he played, the worse he got. And that doesn't make me feel good about the upcoming season in any way, shape, or form. But the left side of the Colts offensive line is good. Bernard Raimann at left tackle, Quentin Nelson at left guard, Tanner Bortolini, I don't fully trust. And then you get to the right side where you've got Matt Gonsalves, who was drafted to play right tackle. Yeah, he's going to play guard. And then Braden Smith, who can't seem to stay healthy, he's going to play right tackle. When it comes to Braden Smith, though, I'm glad that he's in a good place after all the stuff that he struggled with last year. But defensively, Charvarious Ward, I am excited about it. I've been just incredibly negative about the Colts yesterday and really ever since we've kind of moved into the Colts season. And so I'm going to be somewhat more positive today. Charvarious Ward makes the Colts better on defense, and he is a legitimate difference maker. Okay, he's going to be their best corner, and that is such an important thing. Such an important thing. Because the Colts didn't really have a legitimate cornerback number one last year, and you could see it in a lot of these games that they played. Week 1, Nico Collins had 110 receiving yards on 6 receptions. Week 3, Rome Odunze had a big day against the Colts, 110 receiving yards and a touchdown. George Pickens in week 4 had 110 receiving yards. Brian Thomas Jr. of the Jacksonville Jaguars had 120 receiving yards and a touchdown in week 5. Week 8, Stephon Diggs had 80 receiving yards on only 5 receptions. Justin Jefferson in week 9 had 130 receiving yards. Mac Hollins, 80 receiving yards in week 10 on 4 receptions. Malik Neighbors, week 17 on the road against the Giants. Zaire Franklin, preseason, made fun of the Giants, and then they had to go play them. And that defense got absolutely lit up by Malik Neighbors, who had 170 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns in week 17. Drew Lock just dialing it up. And by dialing it up, I mean figuring out where Malik Neighbors was and getting him the football. That's such an amazing thing. You know that Daniel Jones got to throw to that guy last year, and he still got benched for Tommy DeVito? Incredible. And then week 18, Brian Thomas Jr. was excited. He's like, oh, we get to play the Colts again? Let's go. And then he's like, let me just put up another 100 receiving yards. I mean, the majority of the wide receiver ones that the Indianapolis Colts faced throughout the season last year just tore them up. And there's a little stretch there, like week 11 through 16, where, you know, there wasn't any crazy wide receiver who had like a big day. And then you go through it and you're like, oh, that's when the Colts played a lot of bad teams. Not all bad teams, but a lot of them. You know, the Jets, week 11, Devontae Adams only had 70 receiving yards. Week 12, they played the Lions. And the only reason why Jared Goff didn't throw for 1,000,000 yards is because they just ran the football at will. Week 13, they played the Patriots. Week 14 was their bye week. Week 15, they played Denver. I don't even want to talk about that game. And then week 16, the Titans. So that stretch where they didn't have a wide receiver one go crazy was because they played, like 2 good receivers, Devontae Adams on the Jets, and then Amon-Ra St. Brown on the Lions. But obviously with the Lions, they just ran the football at will. And the Colts' inability last year in the secondary to not allow big plays and to not be able to slow down these great receivers was a real problem. It's why they gave up as many points as they did. And hopefully, Charvarious Ward is the answer to that, combined with a new scheme from Lou Anarumo. Because when you play Gus Bradley, I mean, come on now. I know those offensive coordinators are like, this is the easiest week of prep I've ever had. I know exactly what they're going to do, and that's pretty much it. And so hopefully Charvarious Ward and Lou Anarumo can help fix a lot of the issues that this Colts defense had last year on the back end of the defense. Obviously, bringing in Cam Bynum as well is a big deal. I just think cornerbacks are more impactful on the game than safeties, so I'm going to focus a little bit more on Charvarious Ward than I am Cam Bynum. Okay, so if the Colts are better this year, and if the Colts make the playoffs this year, a large part of it is going to be because they brought in Charvarious Ward. Amazing. Free agents make you better. Isn't it great knowing that Charvarious Ward is a legitimately good football player and knowing that he's on your team and it's not some rookie where you're like, I hope this guy's good. And then they're like, nah, he'll be getting like 3 years. And it's like, oh, I don't really want to wait 3 years. I think the Colts need a cornerback right now. Oh, man. Free agency. Who would have thought? Anyway, Colts defense, the secondary should be a little bit better. It is better in terms of talent, but the question for me still remains the same. Do they have enough pass rush for it to matter? Like, can DeForest Buckner continue to be good? I said good, not great. Can Latu be better than he was last year? Can JT Tuimoloau, can he be a good player? Like, as a rookie, can Kwity Paye continue to be Kwity Paye, the definition of average? And honestly, that doesn't even feel like it's enough. So, Charvarious Ward, great. Quarterbacks playing well. Hallelujah. Question from Joe C., which is really good. Why do the 49ers let Ward walk? The 49ers let Charvarious Ward walk because something very tragic with his daughter happened in San Francisco. I believe she died. I want to double check that. I believe that that's what happened one way or the other. Like, I know something pretty terrible happened. Yes. Yeah. His daughter died at 1 in San Francisco, and I think he just wanted to get out of San Francisco because it's just like, I just couldn't imagine living in the same place after something that terrible happened. So I think it was more if he wanted to leave because of that, as opposed to the 49ers wanting him to leave. So really good question there from Joe C. If you have questions or comments on whatever I'm saying, you can head over to YouTube, Indie Sports Ticket, if you want to head over there and subscribe and hop in the chat to ask questions and give me your takes. When we come back here in about 4 minutes, I've got a new game. I don't know if it's a game, but it's really just a question. Who would you rather be, Colts edition? I went through Vegas, FanDuel, and found similar projected teams in terms of wins and losses to the Indianapolis Colts. And it's a really simple question. Would you rather be this other team or the Indianapolis Colts this season? We'll run through all 12 teams when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
highlights in today's sports world. It's here. The real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching on X__Jonathan Smith. If you want to follow me there and watch the show there, you can also listen on that Indy Sports Ticket app or on 1430 AM if you're in the Indianapolis area. Kevin Potts joining the show here in about 35 minutes. We're going to talk a little NFL offseason training camp. We're going to talk Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson and all that good kind of stuff. So who would you rather be? Colts edition. I got bored last night. My wife was gone all day yesterday. You know, like my wife just doesn't stop. It's really impressive. You know, she got up, she went to work, she went to the gym, she met her friend for coffee, and then she got back to our house at like 8 o'clock. I got bored. I did all sorts of things. Okay. I made dinner. I baked a cake for the first time in my life. That was actually kind of fun and really, really good. And I also got on FanDuel, and I really sat down and I really went through all of the interesting over-unders as I get ready to give out these bets here at some point. Looking at the juice, and there are a lot of overs I like. There are some unders that I like. And as I was running through it, I had this idea. I wanted to sit down and really kind of look at the teams that are projected to have a similar record to the Indianapolis Colts. And so there are 12 teams in the NFL that have an over-under number within one of the Colts. So for the Colts, their over-under win total is at 7.5. Okay, so every team that has an over-under win total of 6.5, 7.5, or 8.5, I wrote down and asked a very simple question. Would I rather be this team this season? Do I think this team has the capacity to win more games than this Indianapolis Colts team that we're about to see go out onto the field? I didn't look at schedule. I just asked a very simple question. Do I like this team? Do I like this number? Ridger chiming in over on YouTube saying under. Absolutely agree. I'm not going to bet the Colts under because I don't want to root for them to lose. But if I was to bet, I would undoubtedly take the under because I don't think that this Colts team is very good. But been saying that for weeks now. So let's start with the Arizona Cardinals. Their over-under win total is 8.5. Would I rather be the Arizona Cardinals than the Indianapolis Colts? And the answer is yes. Because they have Kyler Murray, who is significantly better than Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones. The issue is he can't stay healthy. That has kind of been the issue. That's one of the issues with Kyler Murray. That, and he also likes to play a little bit of Call of Duty. Too much Call of Duty. So he can't stay healthy, but it seems like the video game stuff has been fixed. They've got legitimate blue chip dudes that can really play. Like James Conner's a really good running back, not quite blue chip, but Marvin Harrison Jr. was really good last year. Not as good as everyone expected, but still a very good player. Trey McBride is one of the better tight ends in the NFL. They have a legitimate franchise left tackle in Paris Johnson Jr. Okay, Froholt at center is a really good player. Right, so like good offensive line, great left tackle, good quarterback, multiple weapons. Defensively, they went out and they added Josh Sweat to kind of boost that pass rush. Zaven Collins, solid edge rusher as well. That's really it defensively. Buda Baker's arguably the best safety in the NFL. Okay, they got to draft Will Johnson, right? The standout corner from Michigan that was like supposed to be a top 5 pick, and then he fell. So if he hits, then I think that this Arizona Cardinals team could be really good. So I would much rather be the Cardinals than the Colts. The Atlanta Falcons, their over-under win total is the exact same as the Indianapolis Colts. It's 7.5. And I really wanted to say yes, I'd rather be the Falcons, but I had to go no. Because I don't think that this Colts defense is very good. But there are at least some players on the Colts defense that I know are going to have good seasons. The Atlanta Falcons, absolutely not. And I don't know if Michael Penix Jr. is going to be good or not. He didn't play that many games last year for me to have a solidified opinion on him. There's a lot of weapons around him. Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson, Darnell Mooney was good last year. I think all four of those guys would play real snaps for the Colts, but defensively, it is brutal. It's absolutely brutal. There aren't any good players on this defense. Like, you run through it, and it's like, I know who Jesse Bates is. I know who James Pierce Jr. is because he played at Tennessee last year. I know who Leonard Floyd is. And, like, that's it. It's just a lot of not very good on that Falcons defense. And so in order for them to win, the Falcons, 8 games to hit that over, like, they're going to have to outscore everybody. Ross Campbell asked if I still want the Colts to sign the Kissing Bandit. Absolutely, I still want the Colts to sign Christian Wilkins, because at the end of the day, the Colts have very few good players, and I like it when the Colts add good players. Okay, you bring him in, you sit him down, you say, hey, Christian, no butt poking and no trying to kiss other dudes. If you can do those two things, I think you'll be fine. And hopefully Christian Wilkins is like, all right, sounds good. I would like to get paid this or during this season, because the Raiders are still trying to void his contract. Next team on the Would You Rather Colts edition, the Panthers. 6.5 is their win total, one less than the Colts. And no, I'd rather be the Colts than the Panthers. I need to see a little bit more from Bryce Young before I completely buy in, even though he was really good in the second half of last season. He gets benched for Andy Dalton, gets the job back, and then played really well. Right? And if that continues, then I think that you have to like them more than the Colts, because they've got some really good players on that roster. Chuba Hubbard is a good, not great, but a good offensive, or a really good running back. They drafted a wide receiver, I think 6th overall, wherever their first round pick was. Teteroa McMillan, one of the best wide receivers in all college football last year. Big, long, athletic, right? They signed Hunter Renfrow. Like, their receiver room, major facelift by bringing in those two guys. The offensive line still has some question marks, but they've got some good players on defense, headlined by J.C. Horn, one of the better cornerbacks in the NFL. Derek Brown still playing defensive tackle. So, like, they've got some really good pieces. If Bryce Young continues to play well like he did the back half of last year, then I would probably take the Panthers over the Colts. But I'm not sold on Bryce Young yet, so I would still take the Colts over the Panthers. The Bears, their over-under win total is 8.5. The answer here is absolutely. The Bears simply have more talent than the Colts do on both sides of the ball. And if Caleb Williams is good, then this is a team that's probably going to make the playoffs. Okay, Caleb Williams, a quarterback. DeAndre Swift is still a good running back. DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, 2 great wide receivers. They drafted Luther Burden, a guy who can really run and work in the slot. Cole Kmet and Colston Loveland, like, those are 2 really good tight ends. They took Colston Loveland over Tyler Warren. Isn't that crazy? They completely revamped the offensive line, right? Bringing in Joe Tooney, Drew Dahlman, and Jonah Jackson. Those are 3 interior offensive linemen who are proven legitimately really good football players. And then defensively, they've got some good players. Montez Sweat can get after the quarterback. The fact that Dio Dangbo's probably going to be their starting edge rusher on the other side doesn't give me a ton of confidence in this pass rush. But Tremaine Edmonds is a good linebacker. Jalen Johnson's one of the better cornerbacks in the NFL. Kevin Byard is a good safety. Like, they've got really good pieces on both sides of the ball. They just needed to get rid of Matt Eberflus, and they did that. And now they're coached by Ben Johnson. And if he's half as good as people think that he's going to be, then he's going to be a better head coach than Matt Eberflus was. So I would absolutely rather be the Bears than the Colts this season. Cowboys, they're over under win total, 7.5. The answer is yes, because Dak Prescott is significantly better than Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson. They've got weapons on the outside. Obviously, CeeDee Lamb headlines them. But they also have George Pickens, who gives them a nice little vertical threat. The running back room, not great. The offensive line took a hit yesterday with Tyler Guyton, who he tore his MCL, but he doesn't need surgery, so he's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks. So he'll be back in time for the regular season. They'll be fine. The question for them is going to be defense because Matt Eberflus is their defensive coordinator, which doesn't inspire confidence. And Micah Parsons and Trayvon Diggs are really the only two guys who I think are going to be really impactful on that side of the ball. The Jaguars, 7.5. It's their over-under win total, the same as the Colts. Would I rather be the Jaguars than the Colts this year? And for me, the answer is yes. I like Liam Cohen, and I think he's going to bring out the best in Trevor Lawrence. And there's so much talent on this Jags roster. I mean, it's kind of insane. Like, the best version of Trevor Lawrence that we've seen, his first year under Doug Peterson, was really good. Threw for 4,000 yards, completed, I think, 67% of his passes. He was really good. Threw a lot of touchdowns, didn't throw very many picks. And if you get that version of Trevor Lawrence, then they're going to be better than the Colts. Travis Etienne and Tank Bigsby are both really good running backs. Brian Thomas Jr. had a great rookie season. Travis Hunter, if he can just be solid as a receiver, I think that the Jags will live with that because he's apparently playing really well as a corner. Tight end isn't great. The offensive line, we'll see. They lost their starting left tackle. They've got a new one in this year named Walker Little. Don't know too much about him. I like the defense. Josh Hines-Allen, guy who had 17.5 sacks 2 years ago. Emmanuel Ogba's depth is not a bad piece. Eric Armstead in the middle. Travon Walker, former number 1 overall pick, who had 11 sacks last year. Like, they've got good players. And the issue last year was the coaching wasn't great. If that's fixed by bringing in Liam Cohen, then how do you not like the Jaguars going into this season? The Raiders. Would I rather be the Raiders, whose over-under win total is the same as the Colts at 7.5? The answer is absolutely. The fact that the Raiders over-under is 7.5 is simply because of their division. I don't really care, though. They're going to be really good. The Raiders to make the playoffs is a play that I really like. Their over 7.5 wins bet is plus 145. Plus 145 for the Raiders to go a game under 500. After they won 5 or 6 games last year, they're bringing in Geno Smith, who's so much better than Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew and Desmond Ridder and all those guys. Like, significantly better. Okay? Ashton Jeanty is their running back now. Like, that's a real dude that you have to be worried about. Jacoby Myers has been a solid receiver for a while. Brock Bowers just put up one of the best seasons we've seen from a tight end ever. Definitely the best rookie season we've seen from a tight end. Now he's got a real quarterback. Just imagine what that's going to look like. The offensive line can't be any worse than what Geno Smith operated behind last year and still played really well. Defensively, this is where the questions kind of land, but I'm a believer in Pete Carroll. You've got Max Crosby, a real, blue chip edge rusher. They went out and added Jermaine Pratt, who's going to be solid at linebacker. They got Devin White as well, backing him up. So there's some depth there. Tommy Eichenberg is a good strong side linebacker, and then the secondary, there's a lot of issues. So we'll see if that bites him in the butt. But there's a lot to like about the Raiders. There's way more to like about the Raiders than there is to like about the Colts. The Dolphins, I know that everyone is just like, yeah, the Colts should beat the Dolphins week 1. The Dolphins are projected to win more games than the Colts, 8.5. And if Tua can stay healthy, then over 8.5 makes a lot of sense. But we all know he's not going to stay healthy. And I also think that this team doesn't have very much talent. So I think I'd rather be the Colts than the Dolphins. The Vikings, would I rather be the Vikings than the Colts? The answer is no. And I don't really like that it's no. It's so hard to not believe in the Vikings, whose over-under win total is 8.5. I'm just not a believer in J.J. McCarthy. I think that if they liked J.J. McCarthy, then they wouldn't have wanted to keep Daniel Jones around. Okay? He wasn't very good, J.J. McCarthy, on a loaded Michigan roster late in games when he trailed. Now, with that being said, if anyone can make it work, it's Kevin O'Connell. But I'm just not convinced. With that being said, the roster's really good. Justin Jefferson, the best receiver in football. He's He's out there. They still got Aaron Jones. Jordan Addison's a really good receiver, number 2. TJ Hawkinson's a really good tight end. The offensive line is going to be really good. Bringing in, they brought in Will Fries, former Colt. Defensively, they were good last year. They added some actual talent to their defense this offseason, so they're not going to have to blitz like crazy. So maybe the Vikings figure it out and they win in spite of J.J. McCarthy, but I'm not really a believer. Patriots, 7.5, same over-under win total as the Indianapolis Colts. Would I rather be the Patriots or the Colts? The answer is the Patriots. They've got a better head coach in Mike Vrabel. They got a better quarterback in Drake May, who was pretty solid last year on a really bad roster. If Will Campbell hits, then they'll check left tackle, quarterback, and head coach. If you check all 3 of those boxes, then your team tends to be pretty good. So I would absolutely rather be the Patriots than the Colts. The Steelers, they're over under win total, set at 8.5. Yes, I would absolutely rather be the Steelers this year than the Colts. Aaron Rodgers, better than Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson. If he can just not make mistakes, then they'll win games running the football and playing good defense. They spend more money on their defense than any other team in the NFL. They paid TJ Watt. They brought in Jalen Ramsey. They brought in Darius Slay. Like, the back end of that defense is going to be really good. Derek Queen is one of the better linebackers in football. Obviously, TJ Watt. Obviously, Cam Hayward. Like, that defense is loaded. If Aaron Rodgers can just not turn the ball over, they'll win 10 games. So, yes, I'd much rather be the Steelers than the Colts. Final team, would you rather be the Seahawks or the Colts? And the answer is the Colts, because Sam Darnold behind a bad offensive line isn't going to be as good as Geno Smith, even though that Seahawks defense is going to be nasty. I'd still rather be the Indianapolis Colts. So that was would you rather, or I guess who would you rather be? Colts edition. Which team coming into the season? When we come back here in about 4 minutes, I'm going to try to get through Top 10 Tuesday. I may not have time to get through all of it, but I'm going to do my best. And then coming up here in 20 minutes, Kevin Potts of the Kevin Potts NFL and NFL Draft Substack is set to join the show. He's always good when he comes on. We're going to bounce around the league a little bit, talk about all the different storylines going on at all these different training camps. And it'll be good. So when we come back here in about 4 minutes, the one and only Kevin Potts joins the show. Or excuse me, 20 minutes, Kevin Potts joins the show. When we come back in 4 minutes, we got Top 10 Tuesday coming your way.
Rockets at noon. The Real Jonathan Smith Show. Now, this is Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, X, or the Indy Sports Ticket app, or 1430 AM if you're in Indy. Top 10 Tuesday, quarterback stats. I'm just really tired of Colts fans telling me about completion percentage. I know what it is. I understand that it's important, but it's not everything. It is so incredibly overrated because there's so much that goes into it. Like, what throws are you making? What is your average depth of targets? Are you pushing the ball down the field? Because obviously, if I'm pushing the ball down the field more than you are, then my completion percentage is probably going to be a little bit lower. Okay. But meanwhile, like if you're throwing check downs and you're throwing slant routes and little 5-yard in routes and all these things, unless you're Anthony Richardson, then your completion percentage is going to be higher than mine. Okay. Like it's just, it is. And like I said, it's so overrated. So I made a list of the 10 best quarterback stats. Like these are the ones that matter the most. Number 10 is wins. It's a team game. We saw Joe Burrow be awesome last year. Like people, like the Bengals went 9-8, and there were people asking, should Joe Burrow win the MVP? And they didn't make the playoffs. So wins, not a quarterback stat. Completion percentage, it's 9. As I said, incredibly overrated. Tua led the NFL in completion percentage last year, and he's not one of the 10 best quarterbacks in the NFL. So Tua, Jared Goff, Baker Mayfield, Geno Smith, Tommy DeVito, Jaden Daniels, Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts, and Derek Carr. All those quarterbacks had a higher completion percentage than Patrick Mahomes did last year. Are they better than Patrick Mahomes because of that? The answer is absolutely not. Meanwhile, Daniel Jones was 34th in completion percentage last year, and Anthony Richardson was 62nd. The 8th best quarterback stat is interception percentage. This is how often you throw interceptions. Okay, Daniel Jones significantly better than Anthony Richardson at that last season. The 7th best quarterback stat to me is it's yards per attempt. This is how many yards your pass attempts pick up on average. And I posted a little clip yesterday of me talking about Daniel Jones, and a Colts fan responded. And I get it. Like, if you're a Colts fan, you're going to do everything you can to convince yourself that the Colts are going to be good this year. And they pointed out to me, like you're talking about, check downs and all these things. Well, Anthony Richardson's yards per attempt is 6.9, and Daniel Jones's is 6.5. So it's not that different. Here's the thing. This is yards per attempt. So it's for every attempt. The fact that Anthony Richardson has a higher yards per attempt, despite having a completion percentage 17 points lower than Daniel Jones, tells you all you need to know about how deep they're throwing the football. Half of Anthony Richardson's career passes have gone for 0 yards because they've been incomplete. Daniel Jones should have a higher yards per attempt just because he's completed more passes. But he doesn't, because he's simply a check down artist. That is who Daniel Jones is. And as I said, like the first month of the Colts season, when Daniel Jones wins the starting job, Colts fans are going to love it. And they're like, oh, look at that. It's just nice having a quarterback who can complete a 4-yard drag route, right? Like, and it will be nice for the first 4 weeks. And then the Colts are going to be 1-3. And we're going to be like, why are they only 1-3? It's honest, because this guy doesn't throw the ball past the sticks ever. The 6th best indicator or stat to indicate which quarterbacks are good and which ones aren't is touchdown percentage. I want guys who throw touchdown passes. And that is exactly what this stat shows. What percentage of your passes result in touchdowns? Because obviously, if I throw 1,000 passes and you throw 500, I should throw more touchdowns than you, just because I've thrown the football more. So this touchdown percentage just tells you how often Anthony Richardson was slightly better than Daniel Jones that last year. Coming in at 46th, Jones 52nd. 5th touchdown to interception ratio. Okay, how often do you throw touchdowns? How often do you throw interceptions? Obviously, like you want to know, like you want a quarterback who throws more touchdowns than interceptions. Lamar Jackson's touchdown to interception ratio last year was 10.25. Just absurd. Okay. And, like when you look at all these stats, by the way, like they all check out, like the best quarterbacks tend to sit really high in touchdown to interception ratio and touchdown percentage and in interception percentage and all of those other things. The fourth best stat to fully encompass the better quarterbacks in the NFL. It's ESPN's quarterback rating. This is different than passer rating. This is a stat that only ESPN does. And I just think that this stat does a good job evaluating what the quarterback actually does on a play. So, for example, if a running back, catches like a screen pass and he breaks a tackle and then it turns into like a 30-yard gain, EPA, which, spoiler alert, like that is the best stat to evaluate quarterbacks, which is as estimated points added. EPA will give full credit to the quarterback, while QBR will not. So EPA is really about like what happened on the play. QBR does a much better job determining like the role of the quarterback in those plays. And Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson were pretty similar last year. Okay, Daniel Jones 26th, Anthony Richardson finished 27th. Third is passer rating. Okay, there's several components to the formula. It's completion percentage, yards per attempt, touchdowns per attempt, and interceptions per attempt. And, and then your passer rating gets spat out. And a perfect one is like 158.3 or whatever it is. And I like this because when you look at this, like the rankings and who did well and who didn't, like all of the good quarterbacks are at the top. Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Jordan Love, all of the better quarterbacks are at the top. And Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson are far, far below all of them. Daniel Jones, 48th, Anthony Richardson, 60th. Two, whoop. I had a bad button on my computer there. The second best stat to help us evaluate quarterbacks and tell us who's good and who isn't is adjusted net yards per attempt. So this stat does a good job of weighing passing yards, touchdowns, interceptions, and sacks. Okay? And this stat, when you look at the rankings of it, also passes the eye test. The best quarterbacks in the NFL are at the top of this list. Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, and so on. Right? And this, because obviously, like you want a quarterback that doesn't take sacks, and you want a guy who completes passes, throws touchdowns, and doesn't throw picks. And that is what this, adjusted net yards per attempt is all about. How many yards are you picking up per drop back? And obviously, the quarterbacks that rank higher in this do better, and their offenses are better. But number one has to be EPA, which is expected points added. So it basically measures how a quarterback's play contributes to scoring points. Okay, obviously, this is the most important thing. The best quarterbacks in the NFL score a lot of points, and they complete passes to make it happen. So, essentially, your EPA goes up if you have, a 7-play scoring drive where you throw a touchdown pass and you complete 4 other passes in addition to it. And obviously, on a drive where, let's say you score in 7 plays, but you run the football 6 times on them, and the last play is a rushing touchdown, then obviously your EPA goes up more on that drive where you completed 5 passes. Okay. And this is another stat that matches the eye test. Josh Allen led the league in EPA last year, or he led quarterbacks in EPA last year, and he won the MVP. Lamar Jackson was right behind him. Patrick Mahomes was really high, and so on. Daniel Jones was 44th, and Anthony Richardson was 51st. Not very good from either one of them. And that's still the thing. Like, people want me to believe that the Colts are going to win 8 games this year. And my thing is the schedule isn't easy. I think that they've got a pretty tough schedule, and the quarterback play just isn't good enough. Like, the Colts are going to have the lesser of the 2 quarterbacks in the game pretty much every single week. And it's really hard to win games when that is your situation. And in addition to that, it's not like they have some super stout defense to fall back on like the Pittsburgh Steelers did last year with Russell Wilson, who found a way to win 10 games with the majority of the time having the lesser of 2 quarterbacks in the game. So, I just completion percentage, whatever. And, the Colts are going to be bad. When we come back, at 11. Kevin Potts is going to join the show. We're going to bounce around the league a little bit, talk about some of the different training camps. We're going to talk about quarterback stats and so on. It's going to be really good. Kevin Potts, when we come back here in about 5.5 minutes. I'm about to crap my pants.
do this. It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in. No matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket, head over there and subscribe. Maybe you're watching on X __ Jonathan Smith to watch the show and follow me there. You can also listen on that Indy Sports Ticket app. I am now joined by the one and only Kevin Potts of the Kevin Potts NFL and NFL Draft Breakdown Substack to talk a little bit of NFL training camp stuff. Kevin, what's going on, man? How are you?
I'm good. You know, we've almost made it. Football season's right around the corner, and I can stop pretending to care about baseball.
When does football season start? Is it first preseason game? I don't think it's training camp, or is it the first regular season?
For me, it's that first preseason game. You know, the first drive or two of the Hall of Fame game where I pretend like it matters and I care before it gets defaulted into background noise as I'm doing something on my laptop. That's usually the first time when I see it on my screen that I'm like, all right, we're here. It's not perfect quite yet, but it's football on my TV.
I think that's a good standard to have for it. What's really weird this year about the Colts, I was thinking about this earlier, is people are actually going to care about their preseason games. And I couldn't tell you the last time people had like a genuine interest in anybody's preseason games, you know?
Yeah, it's always interesting. It happened a little bit with the Niners back in the day with Trey Lance and Garoppolo and Purdy. So I get to live through that a little bit. It's not the most enjoyable experience to have to care about the performance of a specific position group through preseason games.
Yeah, which I'll be honest, I wish people didn't care about the Colts preseason. I wish we just kind of knew so-and-so was going to be the starter and we felt good about it, but that hasn't been the case here for like 5 years now. Joined by Kevin Potts of the Kevin Potts NFL and NFL Draft Breakdown Substack. All right, Kevin, so it's already happened here in Indy. You know, fans talk themselves into players because everyone wants to believe that their team can be good. And one of the big things that I've seen for the Daniel Jones supporters is his completion percentage and how he completes all of his passes. And like, I get it because we watched Anthony Richardson not complete a lot of his passes these past 2 years. I just don't think that completion percentage is a good statistic to tell us who's good at quarterback and who's not. So when you're like evaluating quarterbacks for the NFL draft or even in the NFL, what numbers do you look to kind of tell you like, yes, this guy's good, or no, this guy's not as good?
Well, I can tell you completion percentage is probably one of the last things I ever look at. There are better versions of completion percentage, adjusted completion percentage over expected if you're going to use it. But at its best, it just tells you the overall play style of a quarterback. Typically, guys complete higher percentages of passes, throw the ball underneath more. So easier passes because they want their offense to stay on track. As far as things that I look for, like from college guys heading out and just evaluating NFL guys, I think big time throw rate and turnover worthy play rate, PFF does both of those. Those are a really good comparison side by side. See how aggressive you are versus how often you put the ball in harm's way. If you don't have access to that, touchdown to interception ratio also works. It's not as good because there is more noise with turnovers. There's a little bit of luck involved, but that's always a good one. And then pressure to sack ratio. How often when you get pressured do you end up taking that negative play for your team? And it differs from guys to guys depending on if they're a mobile quarterback or if they're really good in the pocket. But if you typically have a good relationship between your big time throw rate, your turnover worthy throw rate, and your pressure to sack ratio, you're probably doing something right as a quarterback.
Okay. Where do you think Daniel Jones ranks in all those? I'm just kidding. You don't have to, you probably don't know that. I do want to like, how would you describe Daniel Jones? Cause I've called him a check down artist. I think he just kind of lives underneath. I don't think he's a big risk taker. And like, I think this is going to sound backwards. Like, I think it's good for a quarterback to throw like 10 picks a year because it's telling me that they're trying to kind of push the issue a little bit. Daniel Jones throws 10 picks a year and it's because he just makes bad choices or he makes an errant throw. So I call him a check down artist who I know is going to throw picks and not throw touchdowns. How would you describe Daniel Jones?
I think he's the perfect backup quarterback because what you want in a backup quarterback is you're going to come in, you're going to complete the ball. You're going to get the ball to your playmakers, and you'll be able to run a little bit and use your legs. And that's what he can do. And it's good for a backup because usually a backup's coming in when the situation's been flipped on its head. Somebody's been hurt. Something bad's happened. Okay, we have a guy who's played NFL football who can come in and not screw things up. When you translate to that as a starter, you get what you said. You get a check down artist with a really low ceiling because he's not going to push the ball aggressively, but he's still going to put the ball in harm's way. There's really not much of an explosiveness factor in his game outside of the occasional broken run play that mostly stems from the threat of Jonathan Taylor in the backfield anyways. There's just not a lot of upside in a player like him at this point in his career, which is why he's the perfect backup.
Joined by Kevin Potts, writer of the Kevin Potts NFL and NFL Draft Breakdowns Substack, talking a little bit of Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson. And calling him a perfect backup, I think, is a much better way of saying what I said. So good job there. In addition to that, like, it's like, to me, it seems like the Colts fan base is pretty split on Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones, who they want to be the starter, which is baffling to me because of everything that we just said about Daniel Jones. And when it comes to Richardson, if he can just make the easy plays, and there's no way he doesn't win the job, right?
Yeah, I think the only thing that's his issue is staying healthy. And that's a bigger conversation I'm sure we'll talk about. But if he's on the field, as long as he can get the ball in the hands of what's a pretty good collection of playmakers, in my opinion, between running back, tight end, wide receiver on this Colts offense, and I think a good play caller. So as long as you don't mess up to a significant amount as a thrower, given what you have in that playmaking room and what Richardson can do with his legs when he's healthy, he is the best option. It's just, can he do those little things and can he stay on the field?
Yeah, the injury thing isn't great. He had the shoulder thing in OTAs, which is concerning. Good news. Doesn't seem like anything's really flared up yet. And I don't know, like the injury stuff for Richardson, which, to be fair, Daniel Jones isn't exactly like the epitome of health either. Like, he's had his fair share of injuries, and like he's played one full season in his career as a starter, and like that's it. So I think we're going to see both of these guys play quarterback at some point during the season, just because neither one of them can really stay healthy or stay on the field.
Yeah, I agree. It's not going to shock me if we see a 8-8 split out of these dudes, because I think there's going to be times where Richardson looks really good. Like you said, he's probably going to miss some time, or he's going to frustrate Steichen. And then Steichen's going to be like, hey, my job's on the line here. And we have a quote-unquote backup quarterback who can do some of these little things better. And if you're banged up and you can't add value as a runner, I'm going to go with Daniel Jones. And then you're going to see Daniel Jones play the same way he's played the past 6 years we've watched him on the football field. And like you said, also probably get banged up, and we'll probably flip-flop back and forth, which is how you get this super messy quarterback situation.
Joined by Kevin Potts, writer of the Kevin Potts NFL and NFL Draft Breakdowns Substack. This is something that I think I know the answer to, but I'm not really sure, and I'd obviously like your thoughts on it. What's the best part of this Colts team? Like if you looked at this Colts team and you said they're going to do this one thing well all year, I have no doubt about it, what would that be?
It's kind of a broader term. I would say the offensive supporting cast. Maybe that's a little broad, but obviously Jonathan Taylor's fantastic. We've talked about Tyler Warren all spring. He was my number one tight end. I think this wide receiver room has a bunch of talented, different body types that can stretch the field. You have underneath guy who can separate in downs. You have big body guys like Pierce and Pittman that can do different things. The offensive line, obviously, you've got the new extension for the left tackle. I think interior maybe has some questions, but overall, I think it is a positive unit. And then I like Steichen as a play caller. It's just obviously the quarterback, like we've talked about, is the issue. But I think they have the pieces to be a good offense, and I like this overall offensive infrastructure. It's just the person under center is the thing that scares me the most.
Same. I would have said run the ball. I feel like they're going to run the ball well. They brought in Gibbons from Kansas State. What was your grade on him?
He was a 4th-round grade for me, but it was a project player that could easily be a top 5 back in this class. He just has a ton of inconsistencies in his game, but as far as a backup landing spot, I think it's fantastic because year one might be a little tough for him to be like a big time contributor, but I do think there's going to be some moments out of him for sure.
Okay, I like hearing that because the Khalil Herbert numbers are not great, and he's listed as the Colts' first backup right now. Once again, joined by Kevin Potts, writer of the Kevin Potts NFL and NFL Draft Breakdown Substack. Kevin, you are a 49ers fan, and someone asked me this earlier in the show, and I'm pretty sure I got the story right, but I want to make sure that I did. Why did the 49ers let Charvarious Ward leave?
It was mostly a personal issue for him. Him and his partner had their child pass away, and it was a really traumatic experience for him. And he's been on record of saying that it was really tough for his wife to come back to California, and they just kind of wanted to move on from that chapter of their life. The Niners wanted him back. He said nothing bad about the 49ers organization, and maybe if that stuff doesn't exist, they could make a contract work, but it was pretty non-football reasons why he left.
That's what I had read. I wanted to be sure. I figured that you would know better than me. So you live in the Pacific Northwest, so you got to see a lot of Geno Smith, who I love, by the way. I was looking through future bets on the NFL season, and Kevin, I am a terrible game-by-game bettor, but my NFL future bets are usually pretty good. The Raiders are plus 145 to go over 7.5 wins. I feel like free money is not the right word, but I really like this bet. What is kind of your perception of the Raiders going into the season?
I'm pretty bullish on them as well. I'm also a big Geno Smith fan. I think he got a lot of flack for trying to pull that Seahawks offense up by his bootstraps with really no help. And now he's going to a Raiders team that the offensive cast around him is sneaky good. Obviously, Bowers was fantastic last year. You add Genty. I've always thought Jacoby Myers was underrated. It's a quality offensive line. And you add a quarterback in Smith, who his dome numbers are ridiculous across the years. I always remember every time they go play the Lions, he's throwing for 450 and 5, and he is some really crazy numbers inside. And with the infrastructure, I think this offense could be pretty fun. The drawbacks on them is the defense has some pretty big holes, especially in that secondary. And now with losing Wilkins, who got cut, and that's a whole issue, even if he was going to play, I just don't know if this defense has enough, especially in a division that has 3 other really good teams that might bring down that win total. But I think this offense is going to keep them in a lot of games and a lot of close games that if a couple bounce their way, that win total could definitely hit the over.
That's how I feel about it. The defense is really concerning. The Christian Wilkins thing, I'm glad you brought him up. Someone asked me earlier, because as soon as he got released, I was like, the Colts need to go get him, because I think that the defensive line depth for the Colts is a bit of an issue, and bringing in a guy like Wilkins would beefing that up a bit. I know he's a little weird, but who do you think would be a good fit for Wilkins? Who do you think would take a flyer? Isn't the right word, but who do you think would be willing to bring him into their locker room?
The first team I thought of when he got cut, I think it's going to take a while, this whole situation. I don't think he's going to sign immediately. It's probably going to be a midseason thing, was the Packers. They seem like the exact type of team that I think is a good team that's not great, that needs more juice. They kind of struggled to rush on the interior. Kenny Clark didn't have the best year last year. Adding a player like Wilkins, who, when he was healthy, before he got hurt last year, looked fantastic. He still looked like the top 5 defensive tackle he was when he signed his big contract, would be a pretty big boost for them. And then you'd have the usual cast of characters. The Eagles, the Chiefs, the Bills, any of those top teams that have sustained success are going to be more comfortable taking a midseason flyer on a player with presumed off-field issues and stuff with his rehab that's concerning. But the Packers was the team that I thought could add him, and it would actually make a difference on their team if he's healthy.
Yeah, any team that has real winning aspirations, you would think would be able to kind of squash all the weirdness of Wilkins. We'll leave that there. Yeah. And so I'm kind of with you. The Chiefs would make a lot of sense. The Packers I think would be great, even though I like the Packers. I'm kind of tempted to bet them to win the NFC North, which I think is the most interesting division in football. You could talk me into the Vikings winning that division. You could talk me into the Lions winning that division. The Packers, obviously. Who's the 4th team in that division? I'm blanking right now.
Bears.
Like if you said Jonathan Caleb Williams is going to be awesome this year, I'd be like, maybe the Bears win it. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
The Lions. So I did a thing earlier. I guess this would have been last week about NFL teams I expect to take a step up or a step back. I think the Lions take a step back this year just because they have not one but two new coordinators. Neither one's very experienced. How do you kind of feel about the Lions going into this season on with a team that has a really good roster but has new coaches?
Yeah, I agree. I think they'll take a step back. And part of that's because they set a bar that is so high, it's almost impossible not to step back. But this is a team, obviously you talked about losing the coordinators. They've also played a lot of football over the recent years. And you've seen it with teams like the Rams and the 49ers, that when you play a lot of postseason football, at some point there comes a season where the injuries don't really bounce. And you've already started to see that. And they've had some pretty big losses, obviously with their center retiring. Now you have a rookie potentially starting there. Owuzurike tore his ACL about a month ago. So now they have a big hole at defensive tackle. And they have a bunch of good players. But when you are a team that has been this good for so long, you get a little top heavy. And when you start to see that attrition at different positions, at coordinators and stuff, there's usually a little bit of a slide. I still think they're like a double-digit win team, and like you said, could very easily win that division. But I don't think it's going to be the same machine that we're used to out of this Detroit team.
I don't either. Jared Goff is going into year 10, which is weird. Doesn't feel like he's been around that long. Once again, joined by Kevin Potts, writer of the Kevin Potts NFL and NFL Draft Breakdowns Substack. 2 more questions for you, and I will let you go. I circled the 49ers over-under win total at 10.5 wins. I circled the under. What is kind of your perspective on the 49ers this year? A team that people clearly think is going to be good, but how do you feel about them?
I think they'll be good. I think 10.5 is a pretty good line. I am generally under the expectation that they're going to be a double-digit win team, and they have a shot to win that division because I still think this offense is going to be really good. Yes, you are depending on some pretty injury-prone players, and Trent Williams and McCaffrey getting older. Kittle's never makes it through a full season. You have Ayuk, he's going to be out for half the year. Pearsall's been banged up. But even with all that, you have Kyle Shanahan at the helm. They were still top 10 offense last year when everything went wrong. So I'm pretty confident on that side of the ball. The big difference is going to be the defensive side of the ball. If they stay what they were last year, which is a bottom third, like the 20th overall defense, they're probably going to hit that under. If Saleh can come in and add some new energy to this team, and they brought in a lot of new faces, then I think you see them hit the over. The problem for them is they're relying on a bunch of really young players up front. They've completely overhauled that entire unit outside of Bosa, and it's tough for rookies to come in and all make an impact in the league. I liked what they did in the terms of the draft, but they're probably going to have 3 rookies starting alongside Bosa. So if those guys aren't ready, then I think this defense is just not going to be good enough for them to hit that over. But if those young guys can step up and be quality contributors, I think they have enough pieces on offense with a middle-of-the-pack defense to push for that division win.
Joined by Kevin Potts, writer of the Kevin Potts NFL and NFL Draft Breakdown Substack. Last thing, college football, it's right around the corner. You told me off the air, you've already looked at 50 prospects getting ready for the 2026 NFL Draft, which is awesome. Besides like the obvious guys like Arch Manning, Nico Iamaleava, who are some of the prospects for us to kind of keep our eye on as college football season starts up here in a month?
I think the big one the big quarterback that NFL draft Twitter has fallen in love with this summer is Fernando Mendoza. He was previously at Cal, and now he is at Indiana. He does a lot of things that evaluators like. He's big, tall, strong, power arm, actually works in the pocket, and goes through his reads and does all that processing stuff. The overall production was not very good. That Cal supporting cast was pretty bad, and it resulted in a lot of sacks and some inconsistencies in Mendoza's game. Now he goes to Indiana, who we saw was awesome last year, had the super friendly system for Rourke, who had a breakout year. So I think a lot of people are watching to see if this guy, with all the tools and the underlying metrics that look good, can push himself into a round 1 conversation now that he's in a more friendly spot. And then my favorite prospect that I just don't think gets talked about enough is Keith Abney, the cornerback for Arizona State. He was a big part of a pretty underrated secondary last year. I think it's going to be good this coming year. Super sticky man coverage corner. He grabs a lot. He had about 10 penalties last year, so that's a bit of an issue. But there's not many dudes that move like that. He played really well against those excellent Texas receivers towards the end of the year. I think he's a player that people should keep an eye on if your team needs corners.
Okay, sounds good. That is not the name I thought you were going to throw out when you were talking about a quarterback that NFL Draft Twitter's fallen in love with. I was fully ready for Nussmeier. That's what I thought you were going to bring up, the quarterback out of LSU, for the listeners who don't know.
Yeah, well, people do love him too. He's my quarterback one, so
Okay.
he's a little so I do love him, and draft circles do really like him, but I think he is a name that people know pretty well. Threw for 4,000 yards last year against LSU. I think he's going to be fantastic this coming year. I think he's going to be in that first round conversation. I think he would have been quarterback 2 behind Ward last year if he came out. But Mendoza's probably a dude if people hadn't really watched him, because I don't know how much Cal ACC football got on people's screens last year because it wasn't the most entertaining product. But Mendoza at Indiana is a dude that people should pay attention to, because I think Indiana's going to be pretty fun again this year, even if they play some easy teams.
Yeah, trust me, we will be watching. They'll go like 8-4. That's kind of where 8-4, 9-3, somewhere in there. They'll lose to Oregon and Penn State. Drew Aller, where's he at on your list? Because I don't know. Like, there's moments where I watch Drew Aller, I'm like, this dude, man, first round quarterback right here. And then there's other times I watch him, I'm like, maybe he's more like a 5th round guy. You know, like, how do you kind of balance the really, really good and some of the stuff that's pretty okay?
Well, you described it perfectly, and that's basically what my summary is. And I've watched him. This is the 3rd summer in a row I've watched Aller, and the grade has slowly crept up from a 5th to a 4th, now to like a late 2nd. And he keeps getting better at the things that he struggled with. And obviously, he's 6'5", 240, rocket arm, solid athlete. Like, all that's there on paper. It's just the decision making and the limiting the bad turnovers. And he had some games like that Oregon game at the end of last year was one of the best games I saw of any quarterback play. And if he plays like that, he's going to be the number 1 overall pick. But there's just still too many instances, like against Notre Dame, where he panics and puts balls in the wrong spot. I basically have a tentative grade on him of like a day 2 grade, where I'm like, the tools are great. You've shown enough that you're probably going to get drafted fairly highly. But I just need to see more consistency out of you this year if I want to put you as a first round quarterback. But those traits are going to make him go higher than maybe his tape says he should.
I'm really intrigued to watch him this year because, Warren was such a big part of the passing offense last year. And I didn't think they were very good at receiver. And they've got like 3 or 4 transfer receivers coming in. We'll see how much they elevate the offense. But no Warren. We'll see how good the receivers are. Like, if he's good this year, I think it'll be more impressive than this last year just because he doesn't have a weapon like Tyler Warren.
Yeah, they've just never had good receivers. It's been a while. I think Allen Robinson's the last dude that I remember that came out of there that was like a really good player. They do have a good running game. They have 2 NFL tackles and 2 NFL running backs. So that does help a quarterback just in terms of play action. But yeah, they're going to rely on some transfer guys to separate. And if they don't get it, I think the offense might look a lot like last year. And if that happens and he puts out the same season, I still think he'll be a first rounder because of the tools. But it's going to be a pretty scary projection for a lot of teams if he doesn't show an improvement off last year.
Are you doing write-ups yet for those 50 prospects that you watched?
I'm doing my own individual write-ups. I don't think I'm going to do like a full one for each guy that gets posted. I will be doing a quarterback primer. So my top 10 quarterbacks, breaking them down into tiers. That will come out next couple weeks once I finish up with them. Going through the exercise, there's basically 2 categories. There's a handful of guys that are the high floor, really good processors, like Nussmeier, Mendoza, like I mentioned. Cade Klubnik falls in that bucket. And then you have the video game quarterbacks with all the tools, Lenore Sellers, John Mateer, Drew Aller, that you want to believe, but just don't really know how to play big boy quarterback yet. So that's kind of how that breaks down. But I'll write a full thing, and that will come out before the season starts for anyone that's curious and wants some more in detailed stuff on the quarterback specifically.
And you can find those at the Kevin Potts NFL and NFL Draft breakdowns. Substack. Kevin, thanks for your time, man.
Yeah, man, it's always a pleasure. Excited for the season.
Me too. See you, buddy. That is Kevin Potts. You can check him out on X at KevinPotts06. He's also got a YouTube channel as well called KPotts NFL. You can check him out there as well. And, of course, go read that Substack if you want very good, very in-depth breakdowns on the upcoming NFL draft class. He does a great job covering the draft. When we come back here in about 4 minutes, thoughts on training camp. Anthony Richardson, Daniel Jones both had pretty good days yesterday. What does that mean, though? I don't think it means much. I'll tell you why when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
It may, one day, be a must-listen for sports enthusiasts.
Yeah, and monkeys might fly out of my butt.
The Real Jonathan Smith Show. On Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket, head over there and subscribe. Maybe you're watching on X _ Jonathan Smith. If you want to follow me there and watch the show there, you can also listen on that Indy Sports Ticket app or on 1430 AM if you're in the Indianapolis area. Bad news. Jalen Jones has been carted off the field. There's a photo from Noah Compton, him sitting in the back, head down. He grabbed his leg / calf area, apparently in the middle of a one-on-one rep. So that's not good. Hopefully he's all right. We'll see. They've got depth there. You know, Sam Womack came over from the 49ers last year and was decently impactful. Juju Brent's former second-round pick. They just took Justin Wally in this most previous NFL draft. So they've got options there. Like, they can actually afford to have an injury. It still sucks that it happened because Jalen Jones had a pretty solid year last year, all things considered. Seemed like he'd be a really good fit to be that second corner, and he gets hurt. And so not good. Other good news, though, apparently, Anthony Richardson had another good day today. And, you know, like, that's a good thing. You know, like, I as I said earlier, I don't think it really matters whether or not he's good, because I don't think we're really going to know who's good and who's not until after, you know, we get into these joint practices and we get into these preseason games. But I would much rather read the stuff saying that Anthony Richardson looked good today. So hopefully that continues. In addition to that, apparently, you know, we almost had a fight today. We almost had our first fight. They're doing 11-on-11. They run the football. Grover Stewart gets off a block, meets Jonathan Taylor in the hole, and then threw him to the ground. And then Jonathan Taylor was apparently not very happy about it. Thankfully, Leatu Latu stepped in and was like, "Hey, man, that's Grover freaking Stewart. I don't think that you want to go after that dude." and that kind of simmered things down pretty quickly. So those are the notable-ish updates, I guess, from camp. Obviously, the Jalen Jones injury being the biggest one. Anthony Richardson having a pretty good day once again is nice news to hear as well. Haven't seen anything on Daniel Jones and how he looks, which is pretty normal. And this is, you know, I don't want to do the whole the media here sucks thing, but I do wish that we would get a little bit more stuff on Daniel Jones. Like, I just feel like there's a hyper focus on Anthony Richardson, and I get it. Like, he's the number 4 overall pick, and everyone that has half a brain wants him to win the job and wants him to be the starter because the Colts ceiling with him is significantly higher than with Daniel Jones. With that being said, the Colts went out and they acquired Daniel Jones for a reason, because they think that he can be their starting quarterback. They think he is good enough to beat out Anthony Richardson. And the lack of coverage on him is frustrating. Like there should be a Daniel Jones and an Anthony Richardson question every single day. Every single day. Like for me, I would like to know, how is Daniel Jones adjusting to the new offense? Like, Anthony Richardson has a slight advantage because he's been in this offense now for 3 years. He should know the offense better than Daniel Jones. Like, that is an advantage for Richardson. Like how is Daniel Jones coming along in that department of things? Is he grasping the offense? How I would like to know from, like, I would like for Michael Pittman Jr. to be asked, like, how is Daniel Jones fitting in the locker room? Who are the guys rallying behind? Like, is there a guy who you can just kind of tell is a better leader? Like, are we going to have a Pittsburgh Steelers, Justin Fields, Russell Wilson issue where Russell Wilson's the starter, but Justin Fields is the backup and everyone likes Justin Fields more? Like, is that on the table? And we don't know any of that stuff because they refuse to ask questions about Daniel Jones and how he's kind of looked on a new team that paid him a decent chunk of change to come in and compete for the starting job. When we come back In about 4 minutes, we'll put a bow on the show. Talk a little bit more about this Colts quarterback battle. We'll talk about Bernard Raimann getting extended, Charvarious Ward, how big of a difference maker he's going to be for the Colts this season. All that coming your way here in about 4 minutes.
The best takes. Maybe. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy's Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching on X, __ Jonathan Smith. Follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on that Indy Sports Ticket app, and you can also listen on 1430 AM if you're in the Indianapolis area. Now, the Colts training camp underway. highlights being thrown out. Just saw a clip of Anthony Richardson, making a really good throw. I don't know. It looked like he threw it into coverage, and the receiver made a really good play. But hey, we'll give Anthony Richardson the credit because, why not? He deserves the credit, With that being said, this football season, man, I'm ready for it to be here. I'm tired of people being bored, making up nonsense, because this is what happens. It's a theory that I have. The more bored people are, the more they talk themselves into their favorite team, right? I think it happens every single year. I think it's part of why training camp and the offseason is as long as it is. They want to give you as much time as possible to buy into whatever team you're rooting for. That way you'll go to games and you'll buy tickets and you'll do all those things. Okay? Don't do it. The Colts are going to be really bad this year. But, it's going to happen no matter what I tell you to do. So Shane Steichen was asked yesterday after practice about the quarterbacks. Both guys played really well, according to Steichen, and then Stephen Holder had some follow-up questions, more specifically about Anthony Richardson, because why in the world would anyone want to ask about Daniel Jones?
Yeah, both of them were solid. They're throwing the ball with accuracy, with rhythm, timing, hit some big plays down the field. So very pleased with both those guys.
I noticed Anthony layering some of those throws.
Yeah.
Over maybe zones. I don't know, but is that a good step forward for you?
Yeah, absolutely. You got to throw these tight window throws in this league, and that accuracy, how to layer the ball, and how to know when to throw it, how to throw it is big. Obviously, versus zone coverage or man coverage, whether you're throwing a 7-cut versus zone, you got to be able to lay it. If it's man, you got to throw it firm. So they did a good job with that today.
And getting it out on time is huge in those, right? Has he done a better job of that?
Yes, he has. He definitely has. Obviously going into year 3, the timing, knowing the offense better. So pleased with that.
Shane Steichen right there talking about Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson both having pretty good days at practice yesterday, and a little more elaboration there on Anthony Richardson layering some balls, throwing the ball on time, doing those very, very important things. And it's nice to hear that. It's nice to hear that the offense played well. It's nice to hear that Anthony Richardson is figuring things out. It's nice to hear that Daniel Jones is, seeming to pick up the offense pretty quickly and all those things. It's great to hear. But it doesn't matter because it's tough to evaluate guys in a practice setting, right? When everything's set and it's not the best place to evaluate someone. So for me, the dates that I have circled in terms of figuring out who the Colts starter is going to be, it's not really about these training camp days. For me, it's about August 5th, August 7th, August 14th, August 16th, and August 23rd. Those 5 days are going to carry the most weight in terms of who the starting quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts is going to be week 1. And those are the 5 days that the Colts either have a joint practice with the Ravens or the Packers, or they have a preseason game against the Ravens, Packers, or Bengals. The highlights are nice. Like that video of Anthony Richardson making a throw to I don't even know who is great. And, I hope he does that when it matters. But once again, when you're playing the same people every single day and you're playing the same sort of defense and the same personnel, it just makes things easier. And which is why it's tough to evaluate those guys. So those joint practices and those preseason games are going to be the biggest thing for me, right? Especially because the Ravens are going to be really good this year. And if Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones goes out there and they dice up a really good Ravens team, that like that means so much more to me than dicing up this Colts defense that you've seen day after day after day. The Packers going to be pretty good again. Same thing. Going out and tearing up the Packers means significantly more than, beating the same defense that you've seen day after day after day after day. Okay, the highlights are nice. Hearing Coach Steichen say that Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson look good, that's nice. But the joint practices and the preseason games, those are the things that should dictate whether or not Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson is going to be the starter. And for Anthony Richardson, it sounds like he's gotten better. You heard him in that clip right there. He's layering balls. He's throwing the ball on time and all these things. The footwork. Just type in footwork in the search bar on Twitter, and people talking about Anthony Richardson immediately will pop up. And like, that's great. Like, I'm glad that it all seems nice and it sounds nice. But to further emphasize these Packers preseason and joint practices, like, that is what I'm looking forward to the most, because Anthony Richardson was really bad against the Packers last year. Week 2, I'm sitting in here in this very studio talking about how it's good that the Colts are playing the Packers early in the year because it's not going to snow and Jordan Love's not going to play. It's Malik Willis. And then Anthony Richardson goes out there. He goes 17 of 34 for 204 passing yards, 1 touchdown, and 3 interceptions. And that simply isn't going to cut it. And I don't think we'll know how much better he's gotten until he's facing live bullets. And I would like to be able to compare that joint practice and that preseason game to week 2 against the Green Bay Packers last year. That is when we're going to know whether or not this dude has actually gotten better or not. When it comes to Daniel Jones, he's going to be Daniel Jones. He's going to hit the check down. He's going to throw some bad picks. He's not going to throw very many touchdown passes. You know, he and Anthony Richardson can both run. Obviously, Anthony Richardson's the better runner of the two, but Daniel Jones is serviceable in that area as well. And that's what Daniel Jones is across the board. He's serviceable. And that doesn't win football games, or doesn't win enough to make the playoffs, at least. So hopefully Anthony Richardson wins the job. I'm still not convinced that it's going to happen. So I will hold my prediction of Daniel Jones being the week 1 starter. Bernhard Raimann is going to start at left tackle for a while. He was extended yesterday, 4 years. He signed a 4-year, $100 million extension. And for all the faults of Chris Ballard, all the things that he has not done well, to his credit, he found a starting left tackle in the 3rd round of the NFL draft. That is incredibly difficult to do. When you, like, left tackles and quarterbacks, very similar. Most of the starting ones, the ones that you want, they're drafted in the 1st round. You don't find them on day 2. You find them on day 1. And as I said, Chris Ballard has many faults. There's many things he has not done well during his time here in Indianapolis. With that being said, drafting a left tackle who's good enough to be your starting left tackle for a decade in the 3rd round, that is impressive. So congrats, Chris Ballard, on that. Also, he brought in Charvarious Ward, and I've been very negative about the Colts because I've had to talk about this quarterback battle quite a bit. And I want to be positive for just like a couple minutes, you know? And Charvarious Ward is a guy to be very positive about. He is a legitimate cornerback number 1. And there were too many times last year where the Colts would play a football team and they would give up huge days to the opposing team's best wide receiver. Like, let's just run through them. Week 1, Nico Collins had 110 receiving yards. Week 3, Rome Odunze had 110 receiving yards and a touchdown. Week 4, George Pickens had 110 receiving yards. Week 5, Brian Thomas Jr. had 120 receiving yards and a touchdown. Week 8, Stephon Diggs had 80 receiving yards on only 5 receptions. Week 9, Justin Jefferson had 130 receiving yards. Week 10, Mac Hollins, 80 receiving yards on 4 receptions. Malik Neighbors had 170 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns in Week 17. Can you believe that Daniel Jones got to throw the football to that guy last year, and he was so bad at it that he ended up getting released? Incredible. Brian Thomas, 100 receiving yards again in Week 18 against this Colts secondary. And there's a little stretch in there where, you know, like the Colts don't give up any big days, weeks 11 through 16. But when you look at those days, or those games, it's because they played bad teams. Like week 11, they played at the Jets. Devontae Adams wasn't great in that game. He had 6 receptions for 72 yards. So he wasn't great. He wasn't terrible either, though. They played Detroit in week 12. And it's like, well, Jonathan, why didn't Amon-Ra St. Brown go crazy? Because the Lions just lined it up and ran the football whenever they wanted to. Week 13, they played the Patriots. No great receivers there. Week 15 at Denver, Cortland Sutton's okay, not great. And then week 16, they played the Titans, who at that point no longer had DeAndre Hopkins. So yeah, just there weren't very many dominant receivers in that stretch. And this year, something that we don't have to worry about as much because the Colts went out and added Charvarious Ward is these receivers going absolutely nuts. Like the Colts have a counter to all the great receivers that they're going to play. Like week 1 against the Dolphins. I am so glad that Charvarious Ward is going to be available because the Colts caught a break last year. They played the Dolphins when Tua was hurt. It seems like Tua is going to be healthy for week 1 this year. So they're going to get, the full force of that offense going to Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. And it's really nice knowing hey, they're going to be able to put Charvarious Ward on Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle depending on how they want to set those matchups. And then when they play Denver, it's nice knowing that they're going to have Charvarious Ward to put on Courtland Sutton, who got paid yesterday by the Broncos. When they play the Rams in week 4, going to be nice to know that you can put Charvarious Ward on Puka Nacua or Devontae Adams, whichever one they pick. Like they have a legitimate option to put on the opposing team's best wide receivers. And that is so important. I think that was such an issue for the Colts last year. Like Jalen Jones, who hopefully is going to be okay. He was carted off today after, doing something to his lower leg in one-on-ones. Like, hopefully, Wally or whoever else ends up being cornerback number 2. Hopefully, they're able to hold their own. But knowing that the Colts have an answer for some of the better receivers in the NFL is really, really nice. I am so tired of seeing this Luka Doncic article of him all of a sudden being in shape. He's on the cover of Men's Health magazine. He's trending all the time. His vertical is, 42 inches. All sorts of just nonsense. Like, I'm so tired of seeing it. I can't anymore. Okay? Oh my gosh. We get it. Luka is working out. This is like the 4th off season in a row where we're sitting here and we're like, oh, watch out. Our guy Luka, he's getting healthy. He's in shape. Watch out. We got skinny Luka coming soon. It's like, I don't care. I'm so tired of seeing that. Like, it is entering a place of disdain for me that Ben Simmons workout videos have, because amazingly, we haven't seen any Ben Simmons workout videos yet, which is good because I'm so tired of people being like scary hours. Ben Simmons learned how to shoot, not realizing that all of these NBA players, when you put them in an empty gym, like they don't miss. And so the skinny Luka thing it's just annoying. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. But hey, what are you going to do about it? All the NBA fans are bored and they need something to talk about. And so we're going to talk about Luka working out. In other words, we're going to talk about Luka doing his job, something he should have been doing from the moment that he got drafted. And I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I don't like it at all. That's going to do it here on the Real Jonathan Smith Show. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to tune into the show. I greatly appreciate it, as always. If you want to watch the show on YouTube tomorrow, because we're back tomorrow from 10 to noon. If you want to watch the show tomorrow on YouTube, it is Indies Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, you can also watch the show on X _ Jonathan Smith. I know that's where a large chunk of the audience is. So everyone watching on X right now, I greatly appreciate it. The Dan Dockett Show. It's lined up. It's ready to go. It's coming your way next, noon to 3. You can listen to it on the Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can get wherever you download your apps, obviously on 1430 a.m. as well. We got a couple good guests today. Tom Luganbill is going to come on at 2:30. We're going to talk a little college football. I got my guy Kevin Potts earlier. Talks a little bit about Mendoza, kind of as an NFL draft prospect. Kenny Rhoda, he's going to come on today as well at 1:30. To talk a little bit more NFL, Browns a little bit probably in there, but it'll be good. So trust me, you don't want to miss it. The Dan Dockett Show comes your way next here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you again for tuning in. I will talk to you tomorrow starting at 10 a.m.